Hello everyone and welcome to Kinda Sound. You're here with me, your host Juliette Bryant, and I'm super excited to be sat this time in person with the incredible David Avocado Wolfe. Thank you for coming on my show.
It's fantastic, and we're still in Peru, just finishing up our retreat, and what a time we had.
It was absolutely incredible. So today we're going to talk a bit about Peru, we're going to talk about detoxing, we're going to have the best show ever.
Yes. It was the best day ever, every single day. We just squeezed every bit of juice out of the experience, and from sheer cliffs and harrowing bus rides to incredible plunges in hot springs to the best of what Machu Picchu had to offer. We did it all.
So what would you say your highlight of the trip was?
I think the highlight, strangely, because I've done so many trips to Peru, and just so many retreats in general, was the way that this group interacted with each other. Everybody on their own accord just decided that they were going to interact with everybody else. And so there was not this development of real cliques, that normally happens. It was very, very interactive.
I have to say, when you, so it was October, it was about a week before my birthday, and I was on an inner circle call because David's got an incredible inner circle, which is, do you want to tell actually everyone a little bit about that first, and then I'll tell the story?
I've been running online membership sites for 23 years. So that means that, if you want to get closer to me, or you want to get discounts on our products, or you want to find out what the latest and greatest is in the field of nutrition or the things that I'm involved in, we get you right there in the inner circle. Juliette's been in the inner circle, and just so many interesting people, interesting entrepreneurs. There's, I've been an entrepreneur for 31 years, so if you want my style of business education, how to run a business, still be out and be able to come places like Peru, run your whole business from your phone, that kind of stuff. We cover all that. I mean, we cover everything from all the, how do you use your supplements? How do you use charcoal? How do you use, what is C60? How do you use it? What are enzymes? How do you use them? What's the latest and greatest in, methylene blue, or whatever the subject is? How do I feel about methylene blue, since it's a semi-synthetic compound? All of those questions we get into pretty much every day, I think.
And I think what's so great about the inner circle is if you have those questions about health and well-being, if you something's going on with your family and you want that expert advice that you have, and also the other members in the group can all chip in, so you get a really rounded view of what the best natural route is for any health things, really.
Yeah, like Karen, right? She works in a hospital every day. She's an emergency room nurse. She's the receptionist. She sees everything. So she's right there. She gives you her viewpoint. I give you my viewpoint. We have other people in the inner circle. I tried this, did that. People like Olga. Olga's coming into her 21st detox with us. She's been in the inner circle for 5 or 6 years. You can get all those perspectives and go, okay, that makes sense to me. That doesn't. This makes sense. And you can move forward with a strategy. And definitely in life, one of the most important things is to plan.
Yeah.
Right, and that's another thing we do in the inner circles. We plan our year every year. We get together on a goal-setting workship and we plan the year.
Goal setting.
Oh, it's so,
it's epic.
I think this was my 40th year of goal setting. Yeah.
It's amazing.
41st, it was a lot. And I can tell you it works, right?
Yeah,
if you know where you're going, you're going to get there. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to arrive at the right harbor if your ship's going the wrong direction?
Totally. So we were on an inner circle call, and you mentioned Peru. And I was meant to go for my 40th, but then was pregnant with my youngest. And so it's been a dream of mine all my life to come to Peru. I've always felt a deep resonance with the country and really wanted to go to Machu Picchu. So it came up and my husband's like, you've got to go. And he's like, I never want to go because of the heights. He's scared of heights. And I was
heights were crazy yesterday. We're right there. I'm looking out the side of the bus. I'm like, oh my God, that's 1,000 feet straight down. Okay, don't look.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I got to look.
I was glad I was on the other side of the bus on that occasion, to be honest.
That was insane.
So he said, just go. So it was quite a big step. It was quite a big leap because usually I'm running retreats. Usually if I'm traveling, it's for work. And so on my actual birthday, my 46th birthday, I was like, I'm booking it on my birthday. And that's when I committed. And I'm so pleased I did because it has been just such a profound experience. It really has. And you lead retreats so well.
Thank you. I really enjoy being with people and the diverse people that come from all over the world. We get people coming from South Africa, from Russia, from Europe, from the UK, from Central America, South America, Brazil, all over the world on these retreats. And what a great way to meet new friends in other places too, right?
Yes.
So, now when you go to Sao Paulo, you can always stay with Manu, right? You always have a place there.
Yeah.
And, that kind of thing. It's really great. So I just really love doing it, and the whole pandemic situation really screwed us up, because it had just disturbed my traveling schedule, which probably needed to be disturbed a little bit.
Got a bit time to rest and
Yeah,
ground.
like get back on the ground.
Because that's such an important thing, isn't it? Grounding.
Yeah, being in one place. That year of being in one place in 2020 was really good for me.
Yeah.
It was the silver lining for sure. But now we're back on our feet, and we're back to doing the things that we've loved for years and doing retreats. And Peru came in, and you joined us, and we had it was a full retreat. We had 30 people.
Yeah, it was incredible. And what was so lovely, I think, was, you've got so many connections with people like Paolo, who's an incredible man, local, with such knowledge. So you introduced us to so many people who could really enhance that experience and make it more authentic.
Yeah, that's something that's really important too, is that I've been doing these for so long. Like, I've been here in this country, I've been doing events for 20 years. Not just retreats, but also events. I've done events in Lima where the vice president of the country is in the front row.
Wow.
And her husband, the number one what's plastic surgeon in the country. He's right there next to her, and they're okay. What's about charcoal? What's going on with this? And so I've done a lot of events in this country. We know a lot of people, and also have done a lot of retreats. So we try to get those people. I'll call them up or text them and be like, "Hey, we're going to be here. Come over." Mm-hmm. And every now and then, one of them really, becomes very important for the retreat, like Paulo.
Yeah.
And that was just magical how that all happened.
Totally.
Yeah, it was really cool.
He was like, I really felt a deep resonance, like he was my brother.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, lovely guy.
What is your favorite thing about Peru?
Jeez. The magic is still palpable here, right? We've gotten into, I think, in Western culture, it's probably true of like Europe, New Zealand, Australia, UK, and North America, even Mexico, to some degree, at least, the big cities in Mexico. It's become very scientism, materialism kind of mentality. And here the magic is still scintillating.
Oh, it is.
Right? And things will happen that will just, you'd be like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. We had incidents like that in Machu Picchu, like on day 3, where the guards were really onto us because, we're very different than the most groups going into that place. Most people go in there, it's like the Machu Picchu Olympics. Okay, we're running here, then we're going there, and then we're going to run here, and then we're doing that. Okay, we checked that off. Okay, now we're going down the hill. Let's go to this thing. We'll go to that. That's how most people experience the place. But we want to actually go there and really experience the energy and be there as much as possible. And the guards took note of that, and they basically grabbed us. We thought we were in trouble, and they took us to a spot where we could all meditate and be by ourselves away from all the crowds. That was
profound.
Profound.
It's like, I don't know if you ever read The Celestine Prophecy years ago when that came out by James Redfield.
Yeah, we were trying to remember that name of that book at some part in the retreat, early in the retreat. Yeah, great book.
So, in that book, I read that, I think, when I was about 20, and it had a profound effect on me. I think that's part of why I wanted to come here. Because in it, he has these synchronicities, and it was exactly like you said, it's that magic of the journey unfolding as you go, and the next step presenting when you're like, oh God, what's going to happen? Where are we going to go? How's this going to happen? And it just unfolds in such a blissful, synchronized way.
Yes, I was thinking about that yesterday as we were on that harrowing road. we had to get through a mountain pass by, I think, 7 a.m. or 7:30. Yeah, 7:30. And they were going to close it for
7:31.
Yeah, and we just made it through there. And we all had to get up at like 5 in the morning and be on the bus at 6 and get out of there. But this is no normal road. These are dirt roads through the mountains. You've probably seen videos like this on social media where the end of the bus gets caught off the edge of the cliff kind of thing. I mean, we never got to that stage, but
no.
Thank God. But it was just kind of unfolding. Like, I didn't know it was going to be that crazy. I mean, how would we know that?
No.
But I think our bus driver, he spoke Spanish, and I think he was trying to tell us, but we were like, oh no, it'll be fine. And he's doing Hail Marys and like, and we're like, maybe this is going to be crazier than we thought. But when we got up there, whoa.
I mean, we
just
were
unfolded.
At 4,333. I think that's
that's
amazing
right.
that we got to 4,333 meters height elevation. We're up in the glaciers, drinking spring water. I mean, that water was incredible.
That was incredible. So we're up there in the high mountain regions of this part of Peru. We're in southern Peru, essentially. And there's just incredible glacier melt. The glacier melt off of Veronica Glacier. Wow, was that good. Just delicious water. And just to be able to like be in nature and not worry that there's some industry up there or they're spraying stuff in the sky or anything like that. There's none of that happening here.
Tell me, I'd like to get in a little bit about the spring water, because spring water is such an important thing, and that you call it that primary water?
Primary water, yes. So when you're in the high mountains, this is one of those anti-intuitive things, and it's something I learned from Stefan Rees, who was a really interesting water engineer from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And that is, the higher you get up in the mountains, the thinner the crust of the earth. And the lowest levels of the crust of the earth is always water. And we call that primary water. So a lot of times when you have volcanic activity that comes through an old continental shelf, in the seam between the two dissimilar elements, the volcanic material and the old geological material, you're going to have the primary water is going to be able to get up and come out. So you're going to get, for example, on the rim of volcanoes, you're going to get spring water activity that is going to be primary water. Now that's different, for example, than a seepage spring. Like in my farm in Hawaii, we have a seepage spring in the front yard. When it rains a lot, the water just comes out into a pool and flows out into the yard. And that's because the waters has filled up the aquifer. It's saturated the clay, and it's going to come out. That's a seepage spring. That's different. And then there's also like the wicking effect of the forest itself, where the forest itself creates the spring water activity. But the primary water is really interesting because there's an infinite amount of it.
Yeah.
And so it gets us out of this idea of like, oh my God, we're going to run out of water, and what if there's not enough water for everybody, and all the stuff that's the fear and scarcity programming that is sold to us by the powers
everyone.
The powers that were.
I think what's so interesting is when you drink that spring water, it tastes like nothing I've ever tasted, and the effect on the body, you can feel your cells just starting to vibrate and wake up.
It's like this, everyone's had this experience of like drinking a bunch of water and then you go jump on a trampoline and you could still feel it sloshing in there, or jumping up and down. You're like, oh my God, it's still there. This water, you drink it and it's gone. It's in you. It's already so heavily vortexed, and it's almost ethereal. It has an ethereal quality, right?
Totally,
you get that feeling?
Totally. Because your cells do start to, it's like they're being upgraded by drinking it.
Yes. Yeah, it's like real water, actually. It's what we all used to drink until cities, pollution, civilization got so big. But up there, it's still pure. And one of the things I love about the Andes is that you can just keep going up higher. If you want more purity, you just keep going up higher and higher. That's why they correlate God to the Apus, which is the mountaintops.
Okay.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you're getting closer to the source.
Yeah.
Keep going higher.
Yeah. And you can feel that when you look at the mountains. I mean, the mountains here, I don't think I've ever experienced such incredible energy. There was one point that there was a river and there were the mountains all around us, and I just felt the majesty of nature. That real awe of the energy of water, the energy of the mountains. And the mountains, are made up of crystals. They're made up of serpentine and quartz and granite. So they're like charging out. And I think if you're sensitive, I mean, everyone can receive it, but if you're sensitive, you really pick this charge up.
If we're just being commonsensical about it, let's say the Earth's negatively charged, and let's say we're in a flat plane of the Earth, like out in a desert or something, or out in like Kansas, it's very flat. And then you have the atmosphere positively charged. When you actually put a point up, so let's say a mountain forms and pushes up, the charge is going to collect at the point in the Earth that is sticking up. And that's why the yogis weren't caring so much about what's going on in the valleys. They're always like, let's get to the mountaintops. Let's go meditate in the cave in the mountaintops, because that's where the electrical charge, the negative electrons, will concentrate.
Okay, wow. So it's like, I guess with the pyramids,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. They're concentrating that energy
At the
in
top.
that top
Yes.
part. And in pyramids, you've also got that middle chamber, don't you? Where in the middle point, so you've got the point up here, and then in this middle bit, they say there's a space of no time, because all time zones meet. So we get rid of that linear time. Have you heard that before?
Yes, and when I think about that, I think about the tunnels into the middle of these mountains that are of ancient origin. And by the way, I've been leading retreats here for over 20 years, and so I hear what the guards are saying, and we heard some of the stuff or not the guards, it's really the guides.
Yeah.
And so now you have to go to a special school and get the guides, certain download narrative. And it's just getting crazier and crazier. It's like they're changing the story every 10 years now to something that's just more and more ridiculous.
In fact, that's something really interesting that we heard, didn't we? Someone heard that the story that they're telling is that no women were there.
Yeah.
Whereas Machu Picchu has always been a site of women.
Women, yeah. It was all women, actually. I mean, they changed the story. So you could probably guess, we're in Peru. You get probably who's running this country in terms of like the real power brokers. And they wanted to change the narrative from a feminine narrative to a male, suddenly right at the pandemic moment. So you kind of put the pieces together. That's when they changed the whole story and like, oh yeah, now it's this story. And it's so silly. Or then they tell you that the whole thing was built in 1420, or You know, this place is extremely ancient. It's probably pre-Atlantean. It probably goes back to Lemurian times, the original Stonehenge. I think you got that vibe. You love that spot.
Oh, that spot. There was this one space, and I did a meditation, which is on my YouTube, in that spot, where there was this circular stone area. And as soon as I saw it from a distance, I was like, what's that? And I could see over this area, this golden globe. It's literally like an egg shape over this one part. And it really was calling for us to sit in there. You know, I think what I got from Machu Picchu and from this land is the earth. You know, the earth is waking up now. The divine feminine is rising. And it's not that it wants to push the divine masculine away. It wants to come into that balance, into that union. And in places like this, when we sit and we connect, the earth can communicate through us. That's what I felt. And can really allow us to... I felt like I was having activations all the time, upgrading my whole being to what it should be.
This is very common at Machu Picchu. That's what it's there for, and that's why they want to come in with, you know, the Machu Picchu Olympics. Okay, we're going to go through here, and then, you know, make sure you got your rubber-soled shoes on. Don't take your shoes off. Okay, now we're going to tell you it was all men. It was all built in 1420, and they just want to separate people away from the downloads that are happening automatically in the place. Now, fortunately, the guards are kind of beyond that kind of narrative programming, and they were able to like kind of see that, like, oh, this is one of the, you know, the Grupo Mystico.
Exactly.
That's what they're calling us on their radios. You know, we could hear them in the background. Grupo Mystico's over here, and they're over there, and then they were able to also like uplift that vibe because they want that. They actually really love that. We had dinner with one of the guards later, you know, on the third night. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was incredible.
That's where I got this piece for that. This is the piece he was wearing, and I literally was able to. He actually gave this one to me. This because we were, you know, we supported him a lot.
We did, and he was incredible. I think that was so nice. There was earlier on there was Paolo had given me an offering, and so I went to a guard and I said, please, can I leave it in this spot because I felt the calling. And he went, wait, busy, and then he said, now you can, because he felt the truth of what I was doing. It wasn't like I was trying to destroy the stones or be disrespectful. And I think that's, you know, the people there, obviously they're in that vibe all the time. Most of them, not all, but most of them are going to want to respect that, aren't they, and honor the space.
Yes, they love the place, actually. And so from the guards' perspective, if they see that you love it too, and especially have a spiritual connection to it, they're going to support you. And that's, you know, that's, I was worried about that. It's been a lot of years, 7 years, that we weren't able to get down here. And it all came around to our favor, so we were like, yes, it's still.
Was it a lovely homecoming when you came back? Because obviously 7 years is quite a long time. You know, what did you feel when you came back to Peru? How did it make you feel in your being?
No, it's just it's, you know, it's a home.
Yeah.
It's a place that I've, you know, lived on and off for 20 years. And I've stayed, you know, I've done multiple retreats, sometimes back-to-back retreats. So we have one group comes in, then another group comes in, and then we're here for 6 weeks, for example, and, you know, like living in Cusco. And it's just was great to be, it was really hit me. I liked Lima, and Lima's, you know, always, you know, crazy city, crazy big city.
Yeah.
But when I got to Cusco and we finally landed and got out of the airport, I was like, oh, thank God. That was the feeling. It was like a feeling of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been here, and I felt a huge sense of homecoming when I got here.
If you believe in reincarnation, there's been millions and millions and millions of people living here, and this is a place where all through this country you'll see terraces that are not even used today to grow food, but were in the past because there were so many people here. That means we very likely had many incarnations here. I mean, just being obvious about it.
Yeah. And I'm sure that all the people, you know, what the energy that you put out, I'm sure attracts those people in who have been here before. And also, we're probably all connected to each other from here.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's these energies kind of replay themselves. So if you want to know what's like, people are like, well, what was Machu Picchu used for? And it's like, the energies are always kind of repeating themselves. So it was a place of worship. It was a sanctuary. It was a place of reverence and awe. It was a place like our group was like 5 men, 25 women going to Machu Picchu. So, you know, it was a female place. You know what I mean? So these kind of patterns replay themselves. So if you want to know about the past, just look at the present.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the thing. And regardless of how old the buildings are there, the earth, that the ley lines, the energy points within that, the vortexes have been there since the beginning of time. And the more people go, you know, it's like in the Bible, they say when a few gather in my name, there am I. And I think that represents the whole of the earth, doesn't it? It's like when a few people gather in respect and honor, then it goes into the ley lines and it spreads out through the whole world.
Yes, it's definitely a place that's connected to the whole world. It's like a belly button point of the earth. When you come in from above, or you see it from another mountain looking over, or you're up on Machu Picchu mountain looking at Huayna Picchu and the main citadel of Machu Picchu, you can see the real, you know, cone shape. It's like it's not a pyramid, it's a cone. And Machu Picchu Citadel sits on the saddle that leads up to the top of that cone, which is Huayna Picchu. So, and then the Urubamba River winds around it. So all of those things together, very geologically unique. Almost like it was planned that way.
Funny that. And that river, the Urubamba River, that goes into the Amazon, doesn't it?
Yes. So the Urubamba River, which runs through the Sacred Valley of Peru and begins very, very high up and even very far away from here, is not considered the origin of the Amazon because Peru is a different country than Brazil, and Brazil wants to say it's another river, but ultimately the main tributary of the Amazon is the Urubamba River, which runs right past Machu Picchu. And actually, right when you get around Machu Picchu, then the jungle begins, as we saw.
Yeah.
And you just start getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the jungle, and that's really exciting and really fun. And you'll see things like big flocks of 300 parrots, and you'll see all kinds of tropical fruits and wild things like mucuna, and you know, suddenly you're in the jungle.
I mean, that was, for me, you know, I've been making superfood mixes and working with superfoods for years, and seeing mucuna was such an exciting thing. And lucuma, trying that for the first time.
Wow. Wow.
The taste of it was just phenomenal.
It's a favorite here because it's a long-lived tree. The tree can live over 500 years and still produce fruit. And it's just that perfect non-glycemic sweetener. It's something it's not too sweet, it's not too fatty. It's right in between a sugar and a fat, so it's an emulsifier, and it just smooths the flavor over. So lucuma is one of those like superfood powders that people always hide when it gets down to the last little bit, and they're like, okay, I'm going to hide this behind the toaster up here, you know, no one's going to see it.
And it goes so well with cacao, doesn't it?
Oh,
you know,
the lucuma cacao,
it so nicely.
The combination of lucuma, coca, cacao, honey. What are some other favorite ones here? Maca. Those things, the stevia, those have been together for thousands of years here. So when you kind of, you know, see a lot of the superfood ideas and ideals, a lot of them come from Peru.
Yeah.
They were onto that long ago, and you know, the native people here, the Quechua people, they're really a plant-eating people, and they're very long-lived people. They're a coca eating people. They love their tobacco. They love their maca. They love their quinoa.
Yeah.
And they don't really, you know, age the way normal people do. They live over 100 typically, and definitely have babies into their 50s, which is extremely amazing. It's things I've seen here. So if I had to say who's the longest lived people that I've personally experienced, is the Quechua people, the Quero Nation. The people when the Spanish came, they basically went up higher, and so they live underneath the glaciers, even up to 6,000 meters.
Wow.
With their alpacas, and they, you know, it's a very simple life. They live off their wild potatoes, and we saw some wild potatoes at 13,000 feet yesterday.
That was amazing
growing.
Seeing those potatoes, and I think that's what's so incredible. You know, wherever we are, there are foods to help support us. So here we've got the coca, we've got the maca, all of those things support. They're adaptogens, so they help adapt the body to the altitude.
Yes.
You know, and I think wherever you are, if you look outside your doorstep, there's always the medicine that you need.
Exactly. Here it's just so extreme because we're in the Andes, so the Andes are like this. So, you know, it's not like you can just take a step out your door and it's just like this flat, long, you know, plane out into the middle of the country or something. It's like here, it's like this, and then like that, and then this, and like that. And so you need more adaptogens here because suddenly you're at 13,000 feet or say 4,000 meters, and then suddenly you're down another 6,000 feet. So you're down to say 8,000 feet, 7,000 feet, 6,000 feet, or, you know, what would that be, like 2,000 meters?
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. That's why, by the way, the native people here, the Quechua people, the Quero Nation, developed the rubber-soled shoe from rubber sap from the jungle, and then they could hike up the mountain in a rubber-soled shoe so they wouldn't tear their feet up because they walk so much up and down mountains.
I have to say, before we came, I was a little bit worried about the altitude. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to feel? Because I've never been in altitude. And so I was a bit worried. I wasn't worried because I also knew you had everyone. You know, you said that we've got everything, we're going to look after you. So that was a great thing to know. But having the methylene blue, having the Coca, having the charcoal for the stomach to adapt, all of those things have been, Shilajit I was having on a regular basis, were amazing to support the body. And there were moments of dizziness, but it was so small, because the medicine really works.
The medicine works, and it's, some people have a harder time adapting to it's really high altitude here. So, it maybe at the longest takes 2 weeks, at the shortest takes a day. And for me, it's digestive. My digestive system completely changes at this different pressure, because we have way more pressure on us when you're closer to the ocean and sea level than up here. There's not as much pressure or weight pushing down on you. So you detox, right? Because suddenly it's like there's not the pressure pushing in on you. And we should get into that a little bit on detox.
I was just going to say that. In fact, just before we came, you ran a detox program. So I did that. And that was really great, because I knew I was coming in a space where I'd cleared out only parasites. My gut was in a good space. My body was in a good space. So I was really pleased to be entering this trip in that way. And you've got another one starting on May 8th. How many do you do a year?
I do 4 a year.
Okay.
And it's really it's a journey. It's an inner journey of learning the skills of detox, which are actually going to be the most important skills of the future. One thing we can say about our world is it's a toxic world. Everywhere you look, they're like dumping this chemical over here, that diesel fuel went into that river, this thing happened, this mining disaster, it's everywhere. So you have to and by the way, if you don't filter yourself, if you don't detoxify, then you will become the filter.
Yeah.
You're going to absorb it all. And then if you don't take time to, take the pressure off, then one of these days, one of those toxins is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's why we do the consistent detox. And I do it 4 times a year, and everyone's welcome to join. Starts May 8th, but it really starts now. If you're seeing this now, you should be on a good Parasite formula. So you want to get the unwanted guests out. And by the way, man, I have been seeing on this, latest month or so, numerous people getting worms out, numerous healthy people getting worms out. So that gives you an idea of what's really going on in the world. This is a message that I've been trying to get out there for over 30 years, that it's parasites run the world. That's very difficult to refute that. And you don't want them in you, because you want sovereignty over your being.
Totally.
So if you do the work to actually get the parasites out, then the components of this parasite, because they're physical, but they're also spiritual. They're also control your emotion and your mentality too. All of those get flushed out too with it. So we're in a physical body. We've incarnated on a physical plane, and you need to do physical things in order to make sure that you don't get unwanted guests running the show.
Totally. I read years ago your book, Longevity Now. I got the big
hardback.
The hardback. And it's amazing, the workbook that's really thick. And so since then, my husband and I do a 100-day detox starting in January every year to clear out, no alcohol, just flushing our system, flushing it of the parasites, the bad bacteria, all of those things. And I tell you what, one of the things I really notice is the clarity of mind that happens when you start to clear out the parasites. Because we don't realize in our world, whether it's the bad bacteria, the candida, whatever it is, we don't realize how much it takes over our thoughts.
Totally. Just the thoughts about eating food. Yeah. Just a simple thing like candida wants sugar, and so it's going to cause people to suddenly want to eat sugar. That's a simple yeast organism. Yeah. Think of what a complex parasite like a tapeworm or a liver fluke can do to control your mentality. So I try to put the videos out on social media of okay, this is a parasite taking over a beetle. Look what it's doing. It's taking over its nervous system. And then, show another parasite taking over another being and see how it takes over its nervous system. Just to try to drive that point across that it's clear and obvious that the people running the world are engaged in parasitic behavior. Do you think that's an accident? No. They are actually contaminated with tapeworms and parasites. Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult to disprove that. I'm telling you, I've spent a lot of years looking at this, and it's we're in a reset right now. We're in a reset of our whole civilization. And at the very beginning of society and civilization comes the clear understanding that what's really going on is we have to develop sovereignty in order to develop individual ideas that can drive the human enterprise forward. If we don't have sovereignty over our being, then we're going to be doing what everybody else does, like zombie style. You see what I'm saying?
And I think it's really interesting, with children. There's a lot of behavioural problems with children at the moment, and I think a lot of it, some of it is from the artificial all the artificial things that go
Yeah,
into
the
their
dyes
diet.
and totally.
But I think a big part of it comes from, most of them are probably have parasites.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's not being addressed, and so they're running wild because they're taking over their body, and the cravings for sugar then come from that parasitic activity.
Yes, 100%. And then the whole direction of our whole civilization, if parasites are running people's minds, you can imagine that if there's, remember what they say. Oh, they're over there. They're on the other side of the border somewhere. So we don't have that here. There's none of that here. It's over there somewhere. Just that tells you, that should be a red flag right there. Parasites are present everywhere. If your dog gets sick, it's parasites. Your cat gets sick, it's parasites. If you get sick, oh, no. It's like you got some kind of a thing floated in from somewhere. I learned from Hannah Kroger years ago. She's a famous herbalist, German woman, thick German accent. She might have been born in Austria, but definitely German speaker. And she said that if you get the worms out, then you can't get sick because the worm is the virus factory. Yeah. Whatever a virus is, it's being manufactured inside the tapeworm. And so that makes makes people susceptible. And I can tell you from years and years of parasite cleansing that I'm not susceptible. You've seen how berserk I'm going. I'm going to bed the latest of anybody. I'm getting up earliest. How come I'm not cold, flu, cough, fever, sore throat? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And there's now links, isn't there, with cancer and parasites?
Yes.
Because we're looking at treatments like the ivermectin, fenbendazole being amazing for cancer treatment. And it's why? They're antiparasitics.
Right, exactly. So that means two things. And one mechanism of action that's interesting to look up is caspase inhibition. And both cancers and parasites use certain types of caspases in their development, and so the ivermectin, for example, is a caspase inhibitor, so it disrupts metabolic pathways that cancers and parasites use. So the two things is that maybe in many cases the cancer is actually parasites, or maybe the cancer is using parasitic pathways to develop in the body. Either way, the approach is going to be the same. The antiparasiticals are going to disrupt that metabolic pathway and stop the cancer from growing.
And now there's more and more people with this MTFHR gene mutation, which means that their metabolic pathways for detoxification aren't working properly anyway. So it's so much more important that people get on the detox.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a choice, actually. Yeah. It's like, how they force you into schools and like, okay, you have to, like, the bell rings, you got to go to the next class, you got to learn something else, then you got to go to the next thing, and it's like that. But this is real school, and it's real skills that you're developing. All the people I know who started cleansing and detox and fasting when they were 13 years old or 10 years old because their parents were into it, today are very amazing people because they've never been intoxicated in the way that most people have, and they have the skills built up over time. So they're still looking great. I'm thinking of a friend of mine I've known for 30 years. She looks exactly the same as I met her 30 years ago. This is the power of cleansing and fasting and learning these skills. So it's not a choice. You actually have to at least once a year develop the skills or join a cleanse and get going on it. And then if you get really good at it, do 2 a year. And then if you really get sophisticated, 3 a year. And then if you're really berserk, go 4 a year. And from that, you'll find out, you'll become an expert, like Olga, in our group. She's on her 21st detox with me.
Incredible. And I think what's so nice about the detox that you run is that you're holding a space, because that's the thing, I think so people feel so alone sometimes, and they're like, is this normal? Is this meant to happen? Am I meant to feel like this? And because you've got the group where people can ask those questions, it allows people to succeed so much more because they're being held.
Hawk and I were talking about that last night. So when she first started doing detoxes in the late 90s, she got some detox kit, and she's supposed to eat all these things, to get the mucoid plaque out, and there's no support. There's nobody to call. There's nobody there. We're in a Telegram chat group. It's like boom, you have a problem. It's just like type it up immediately. You're going through a crisis. I'm going through a crisis. I'm dying over here. What do I do? It's right there. It's amazing. There's always somebody there for you because there's people from all over the world in the cleanse. Yes. So if I'm asleep, Cassie's awake, or if Cassie's asleep, somebody else over in Australia's awake, or somebody's there for you. Oh, how do I do this coffee enema? What do you mean a coffee enema? What's an enema? Yeah. All those
you
things.
Talk it through. You do every week you do a Zoom call so people can understand and take it to that next level, which is such a great thing. But when you were just talking, it just made me, so on the bus yesterday, you were reading, what book were you reading?
I was reading Lucifer and Ahriman by Rudolf Steiner, which is very core to Rudolf Steiner's cosmology and all of his work, because his work is about balancing forces as a way of virtue. It's very similar. He's reincarnated Aristotle, right? Aristotle's about the golden mean, that like foolhardiness and foolishness are, are kind of opposed to cowardliness, in the balance of courage, right? Courage is in the middle of that. So it's not like, somebody has more courage if they're going to do something foolhardy and jump off a cliff and kill themselves. So that's just pointing out a balance of forces in every part of our life. And if we take that to an extreme understanding, which is what Rudolf Steiner's doing, the luciferic force is the force of escapism, which besets humankind on one side, and the harmonic forces are forces of materialism that beset humankind on the other side. And it's a balance of those forces in life that allows creativity to occur, for example. And right now we're in just a materialistic extreme. And a materialistic thinking extreme.
And when you were reading, there was this one part where you were talking about how we've become very lazy. Everything's about ease, with the phones, with AI. We can have life at our fingertips instantly. We can order our food. We don't have to go out and forage. We don't have to do anything. It's right there. And when you were reading this, what was really coming was this spiritual practice, this working on ourselves, having that time for that discipline, which is so important. And detoxing is part of that spiritual practice and that discipline, that hard work. It's not easy, but the reward is incredible because you feel lighter and you feel more connected to everything that is.
One of Steiner's fundamental precepts, and it's very fundamental to life on earth, is that there's a struggle. That there's a struggle. There's an inner struggle. There's a struggle to survive. There's a struggle to get ahead in your work, your business, your creativity, whatever. It's a part of life on earth is struggle. And you have to get out there and get it done. You have to be disciplined. You have to do things. You have to step into uncomfortable situations. All of those things are contained in a detox.
Yeah.
They're all there. And like this last detox I did, because I just did a 35-day water fast, and less than 3 months later I did a 13-day water fast with 2 weeks of cleansing leading up to that water fast. And it was like 21 days straight of like, geez, this is really difficult, because my body was resisting so much because I'd just done a long fast. It's like, what, you're doing this again? And so I had to face a whole nother wave of stuff. And this is what actually develops a human being spiritually, actually, is that you have to go through the struggle in order to overcome and step into the next level of yourself. And it's what a metaphor. And that's why I think fasting and cleansing has such a strong position in our society and civilization, because the daily struggles of like, okay, we got to go out and get our food and that kind of thing, those have disappeared.
Totally.
Right? So now it's an inner work struggle where it's like, okay, I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm not going to eat that, and I'm going to avoid that, and I'm going to do the intense inner work that requires me to be able to have the strength to stay away.
Because it's a mind battle. I remember the first time I did a fast, my oldest boy, who's now about to be 21, was 1, and I did a 7-day juice cleanse, and I'd never done anything like that, and it was just carrot juice, and I had that, a litre of that a day, and then water, and there was nothing else. And I did it, but I was making him food, and I remember this voice coming up saying, why don't you taste it? You need to make sure it was okay. It's okay. And I was like, well, no, I'm doing a fast. And there was this inner battle that was going on. It's like, yeah, but no one will know. And I remember telling myself that, hearing that voice, and I was like, yeah, but I'm doing this for me. What? And I couldn't believe the battle that was happening within my being, and overcoming that was such an incredible thing, because I realized that if I can overcome that, my mind, that ego voice that's trying to pull me off my path, then I can do anything. Yes,
absolutely. That's right. And so that's what the meditation teachers teach, right? Is that you're becoming a watcher of your thoughts. So I had to sit there for 3 weeks, think of how hard that is, and watch these thoughts and be like, don't identify with the thoughts. Thoughts trying to talk me out of this, trying to talk me out of that, and just ignore it. Keep walking forward, keep ignoring it, keep walking forward. And it would just come up at the most random times, like ignore it, keep walking forward. So you really become the watcher of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And you can watch them and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to listen to that. No. And that inner struggle is part of the lessons that Rudolf Steiner's teaching us about the development of the human in the future, because everything is with this phone is becoming so easy. And if you don't have struggle in your life, it's going to be the price you will pay down the road at the soul level will be catastrophic.
And I think with the phones, with the computers, with all the technology that we've got, what it's also doing is it's taking us out of our intuition, our telepathy. You know, in the olden days, we'd send a signal. I mean, my husband doesn't have a phone, so he sends me signals anyway. He won't have a mobile. But we're losing those skills. And I think by the detox, by clearing out your body, you return yourself, you become closer to the earth, to the energies, you become so much more sensitive to everything around you, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, look at how disturbing this thing is. And, you know, like, look at the electromagnetic field and everything that this is all about. When you're fasting, you can also be fasting from devices.
Yeah.
You could be fasting from televisions. You could be fasting from films, and that might become a way of life for you. I fast from films. I don't watch televisions. Basically, I'm trying to minimize screen time of any kind of screen at all, because nature is actually much more interesting. Our harmonic forces are trying to take all the things that humans have gained through clairvoyance, you know, or insight or intuition, you know, let's, for example, like the Machu Picchu monuments, and we can tell intuitively like that stone circle that you really loved is the oldest part, and that's what all the shamans have always said, that's the oldest part of the monument. You can feel that. They're trying to take all of that and they're trying to put it into a social media app and go, okay, here's what Machu Picchu is, and here's the oldest part. And so all those things that had to be gained through intuition, through experience, through going there, through feeling, are now just being like, oh, it's on your phone now, you don't need to go there, and here's an easy way to like see it all. So what it does, it creates, each person says, oh yeah, no, I know that already. Oh yeah, I know that. So through the AI, essentially, or through the computer world, it's our harmonic forces are trying to actually take away the things that have to be earned through intuition, through clairvoyance, through meditation, through feeling in the places, for example, like Machu Picchu, where those discoveries can be made, or through the experiences of like fasting, where the discoveries, the internal discoveries, are made.
Yeah. So when it comes to fasting, when it comes to detoxing, you know, obviously there's the parasites you need to cleanse. What else do you think are the key things that
heavy
need
metals,
to be worked on?
heavy metals and toxics and toxin plastics and that kind of stuff. So liver cleansing, heavy metal cleansing. So that's going to be a combination of like charcoal, water soluble C60, fat soluble C60, doing drinking the olive oil, the Andreas Moritz style cleansing, you know, so you can get those gallbladder stones out. Using castor oil is very good. It's amazing.
Which we saw.
So amazing.
Oh, that was so exciting when we saw this, because I've never seen castor.
You've never seen it, yeah.
No.
Castor was growing in the valleys down leading into the jungle below Machu Picchu. And I've seen castor growing all over the world. It's got to be one of the world's most invasive plants for a reason, of course.
Because we all need it.
Everybody needs castor oil. Is like, the oil of it is, it's so similar to human tissue, and it normalizes human tissue. So when you get it on topically with warmth, it'll drive in there, and let's say there's like stones in your gallbladder or something. They help to soften that crystallization and help the body to let that all go. It can be, let's say it's bursitis or things like that. Castor oil. Let's say it's a corn on somebody's toe or something. Castor oil with heat behind it. And then if you use the other tools like DMSO or carbon 60 spray, then you have a crazy cornucopia of things to choose from to heal yourself. And then if you're doing all of that while you're fasting or detoxing, then the burden is much less on your system. So your body can go, let's use all that energy for healing this.
And what's so interesting is if you look at like Chinese medicine, for example, the liver is about anger. So when the liver becomes burdened, we get more angry in our being, and we see so many people walking around with anger. And the other one is the kidneys, you know, which are that filter of the body, and the kidneys are fear. And so the two, I would say, two of the biggest emotions that people experience nowadays are fear and anger. Probably because they need to detox.
Yeah, 100%. The kidneys are, you know, that's another Chinese medicine thing that's very important. The kidneys are very, very important for overall health, and very difficult to get back in balance if they get out of whack. One of the main filtration organs, of course, the kidneys, can be supported and helped by charcoal, because charcoal, once it gets into your intestines, causes a phenomenon called interstitial dialysis. Sounds familiar, right? Dialysis. What's that? What it's doing is it's helping to filter, it's taking a burden away from your kidneys, and the charcoal itself acts as a kidney with the villi of your intestines, and it filters off toxins off your blood. What a story that is, by the way.
Incredible.
And another thing, taking charcoal, you know, I take charcoal almost every day and have for 10 years, is, you know, some days it comes through you and some days it doesn't. And it's like, where's it going? Well, according to our mineral theory, I don't necessarily buy any theory 100%, but the mineral theory of like carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, zinc, copper, calcium, magnesium, iodine, etc., you're 12% carbon. That's by far, that's number 3 of anything. So
Wow.
only hydrogen and oxygen are more. If we just had all the calcium, magnesium, that's only 2% of you, all the calcium and magnesium. So you're way more carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. So to me, taking charcoal, activated charcoal, is like, it's like a supplement. It really is. It's like a mineral supplement. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to take it, because it's not just that it's a detox substance. It is that, but there's more going on than that.
I think one of the things as well with the kidneys is obviously the adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys. And we live in a world where most people are living in fight or flight all the time. You know, we live in a world where, because of things like phones, we're always on the go, and most people don't know how to switch off and just chill out. And so when the adrenals start to overwork, they then affect the function of the kidneys, so supporting the kidneys even more. But do you think that the charcoal supports the adrenals because black foods support the adrenals, don't they? So like shilajit, chaga, licorice, things like that all support the adrenals. Would charcoal support the adrenals as well?
Absolutely. This is one of the things that is always obvious about the world. Everything is always obvious. There's nothing complicated. A child can understand how to survive just as an adult can, just as somebody who's 80 or 90 years of age. The color of the thing tells you what it does. So a black substance, that means it's kidney, battery pack, longevity. And of course, in the case of charcoal, all of those things have been proven to be part of what charcoal does for you. You can tell that by the color instantly. 1 second, charcoal. Shilajit, it's black. Okay, we know exactly what it does. Anybody can tell that in 1 second, and that's how reality is.
Yeah.
So the complication disease is what we call it. The complication disease of civilization. What a number that is done onto people, right? Oh, you've got this complicated disease now. Now we're gonna have to do all these complicated surgeries and this complicated this and this and that. And my feeling about all that is the most intractable problems have the simplest solution. You've heard me talk about water, sea salt, charcoal, lemon. Just that combination, water, sea salt, charcoal, lemon. That's a combination that is not going away anytime soon, because all of it's there. What are you? You need water. What about salts? That's your minerals. Now we say electrolytes because we had to get fancy because salt became a bad word, because all of a sudden it's all bad for you because they took salt, turned it into junk food, got rid of all the trace elements, sold it to chemical companies, and then give you sodium chloride that's ionically bound and tightly bound. You can't even break it apart, and then said that's salt. That's an aberration of consciousness. That's not salt. You know, that kind of stuff. So then charcoal, detox, and then lemon and lime, you know, that's just a gentle liver cleanser. It's just to get the acid cascade going again for digestion. When you put all that together, that's the basic detox right there. So if you can get away from food and just have that, eventually everything's going to get sorted out.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I'm seeing so much in the world is this inversion. You know, everything good for us has been inverted. So tobacco, cacao, salt, you know, these key things have been turned into poisons or, you know, from what's being added into them, not from what nature is. Cannabis is another one. And so I think when something's bad, we have to go, well, is the root of it actually bad, or is it the bastardization that man has done to it to toxify something that's actually one of the best healing things?
You know, when you're here in Peru, you're in the jungles of Brazil or Venezuela or Colombia, you see that the people there, they're very long-lived, they're very active, they're sharp in their mind and body and spirit until their last days, and they will consume coca and tobacco every single day.
There was that beautiful thing that Paulo said about Mama Coca. Do you want to say it?
This was
really
amazing.
Powerful.
This was very powerful. You know, when you're down here, you got to be on the coca tea, right? The coca tea helps you adapt to the altitude, and it's a true adaptogen. Of course, coca is where they get cocaine from. You need 3 trash bags of coca leaves, like those big hefty trash bags, to make 1 line of cocaine. And it's interesting that out of the 14 alkaloids that's in Mama Coca, that they selected the numbing agent, meaning that our civilization is trying to numb itself away from the pain. Could have been we could be extracting papain from coca, for example, which is a digestive enzyme. And that could be, the whole civilization could be focused on that, but no, it's focused on cocaine, which is a numbing agent. I find that to be interesting. But nevertheless, Mama Coca has always been there. It was cocaine through the back door, it was Coca-Cola through the front door, but never in your life has Mama Coca been far from you. And so what the shaman said to us when we first got here is that it's just you're finally coming home. You're just finally finding out what the real thing is. And when you find out what the real thing is, you go, oh, this is, my God, what have we been, how have we suffered? And what have we been missing? And that's what's so beautiful about coming back here. And the mystery keeps deepening, right? When I first came here 20 years ago, it's like, okay, let's get the Yipta, which is the activator, and you roll that up with your coca leaves, and you chew the coca, and you go through the process like the native people here do. And then eventually you find out that in this region of South America, there's been certain tribes that have perfected the combination of the activator and the coca, and they've gotten their tobacco as a paste. So that's the number one form of dental care historically for native people in South America. And you can rub that right in your gums, and then you put the coca powder with other herbs in it in on top of that, and you just suck on the powder so you don't have to chew through all those stems, which can irritate your gums after a while. You know, if you're not grown up in this culture and you start chewing through the stems, especially the end of the stem, I always rip those off. But even the middle stem all the way through can irritate you. And so there's been tribes that have perfected it.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting too. And so now that's coming out now everywhere. So everywhere in South America, I'm seeing mambe, which is a form of coca that has other herbs in it. That's a fine powder, and you just put that in rather than having to chew coca all day. And then ambil, which is a form of tobacco, so you don't have to smoke it, and not even the rapé in the nose. You can just put it on your teeth down in here, and it just absorbs in, and you get the effects of nicotine through your whole body, which, as we're finding out, and as everyone's finding out, we didn't get the true story about nicotine.
Yeah.
Nicotine, number one laxative. Look into it. Nicotine, number one for weight loss, look into that. Number one appetite suppressant, look into that. Number one nootropic, look into that. Number one for protecting the heart from pericarditis and myocarditis, look into that. And that list goes on as far as you can take it. And so to me, I'm like, well, nicotine, number one for longevity. The longest lived people have always been tobacco smokers. You don't even have to be a tobacco smoker. Those Colombian shamans I've been meeting with, they just put the tobacco paste on their gums and then put the coca in on top of that. So they're not even smoking it, right? So there's no excuse, right? So well, what about the tar? And this is like, don't worry about that. I get the brainwashing. I know what they've done to the cigarette companies. The cigarette is the hot dog of the, plant world. Don't worry about that. We're not doing that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the real original thing.
Because again, it's like with nicotine, it's the inversion, it's the corruption, it's whatever they add with it, like the cigarettes, the formaldehyde and all these other chemicals that are causing
potassium nitrate,
the problems within our body, not the original substance. I have to say, when we did that Coca ceremony, we did a beautiful Coca ceremony, and I really felt my heart opening. It was this huge homecoming, which was such an incredible thing, because it has been bastardized in the Western world, and so I think it really now is the time for it to come back because of all the properties you were talking about, because of this medicinal benefit. It's time for us to remember, like with all the plants, it's time for us to connect back to the earth and remember how powerful the medicines of this earth are.
Nobody actually wants cocaine. They don't. That's just they're going to the toxic imposter of what the real thing is. Nobody wants some hot dog cigarette made by some mega corporation. They're going to the toxic imposter of what the real thing is. This fake or toxic imposter scenario that we've been presented with is now dissipating. The illusion is going away. Toto is pulling back the curtain, and we're going, oh, it's actually this, it's this, and it's this, and it's that. And when you have the real thing, there's no substitute for the real thing. So once you get the real thing, you're like, yeah, why would you want, cocaine? What do you want that for? Or Coca-Cola, what do you want that for? You want the real thing, of course. And now that's part of what's happening in our reset times. Is like we're able to get to the core of what it is. Like the thing about tobacco, my God, number one longevity substance. Like think about the lies that they've been telling you. Nicotine is addictive. This is a lie. It's a bad one. The pyrazines they've been adding to hot dog cigarettes, that's the addictive thing. All that stuff. This has all been in the public literature for decades. This is not a secret. But the parasite media, run by parasites, right, that are tapeworms running the whole thing, they don't ever tell. It's about propaganda. There's no truth going on there at all. This is the power of the phone, though. I don't like the screens, but from the phone we can get the direct information, and then we can go, okay, boom, I got the direct information. Let me now use it.
Amazing. It's been so lovely talking to you, and I could talk talk to you for hours, but thank you so much for taking your time, and thank you for showing us Peru. Thank you for opening our eyes to what an incredible mystery and journey we've been on. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and I highly recommend getting onto the Inner Circle, getting onto the Detox program, because they are incredible. You will be held in a sacred, safe space where you can really journey inwards and allow yourself to start developing those spiritual muscles that we need, those physical muscles, so that we can endure whatever rubbish is thrown at us.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you for that, by the way. And the pleasure is all ours, our whole team and everybody who came to come to Peru and put this event on. It's been an absolute joy having you with us. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, everybody. Have the best day ever.